any phone?
Yeah.
I'm sure Ed did.
No, we didn't.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome.
We're doing
See if I can bring this group to my left to order here. It's a big task tonight, I think. So, it is Monday, February 18, 2019, 5 p.m. It's a meeting of the Oregon Village Board, which I'd like to call to order and request roll call, please.
Carpenter. Here. Glish.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Bollig.
Here.
Boudreaux.
Here.
Jacobson. Here. Staton.
Here. Thank you. And then we'll turn it over to the library board.
Jenny is not here tonight. Is it okay if I call it to order, or do you need a board member to do that?
You can do it, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll just call the library board to order. We need a motion. We need a motion to do that. I'm really sorry.
No, you just did it. It's
All
done.
right, then,
Is the vice chair of the library here?
no,
Oh,
sorry.
so then Peggy can just do,
Okay, I apologize. We had some conflicts come up unexpectedly.
no, don't worry about it.
That happens sometimes.
big deal.
Book emergency.
So can you do that?
I will do the roll call.
Okay, Peggy's going to do roll call for the library board.
Goplin.
Here.
Stata.
Here.
Nelson. Bustler. Severson. Sento Ishuda.
Here.
Carpenter. Here.
Okay, and welcome to library board. Moving along in our process, it's good to see. I know we've all been working hard on this. So item 5 is discussion and review of AIA document B1010-2017 agreement between the village and OPN, which is the architect for the new library building. So Jennifer, welcome, and you're on.
Thank you, and I apologize for the few board members who weren't able to make it tonight. We have before you a proposed AIA agreement, and it's based on a standard AIA contract, which is something that typically most architects do use. We're fortunate to have some excellent legal expertise that it went through a careful review, and many of the provisions were amended to be more favorable to the village and the library. Laura Callan and Matt Dragney are both here, so they'll be happy to address kind of some of the points. But the services are essentially based on what was included in the RFP. So again, it'll be conceptual design for the library. There'll be a number of public input sessions included in that contract as well. And just a review that the funding for this would come out of impact fees. So that's impact fees that were already collected previously. Laura or Matt, do either of you want to add any specific details? I know that there were quite a few recommendations that were added at Laura's request, and she did an excellent job of vetting the agreement. So
I would defer to Laura if she has any comments.
I don't have any additional comments, just to note that it's a relatively straightforward but limited contract for the initial phase 1 set of services to be provided for a lump sum. It's $45,000.
Excuse me, could I interject something here? Laura, would you identify yourself for the public?
Oh, sure. I'm Laura Callan of Stafford Rosenbaum.
Thank you. I know who you are, but I don't know if anybody else does.
thank you, Jerry.
Yeah.
So the compensation for the architect for this initial phase of services is $45,250 plus a cap of $540 on reimbursable expenses. So those are the financial terms. As Jennifer mentioned, we were able to negotiate the contract and include a broad indemnification provision in favor of the village. So we're happy with the end product. And OPN was very easy to deal with on contract negotiations.
Could I just interject for a minute? Laura, could you just help put for board members who may not be aware and for people who might be watching, can you explain how this phase of the contract fits into the bigger picture in terms of architectural services? Because I think you mentioned this is just phase 1.
Right.
What happens after phase 1? How does this fit into the bigger picture?
So yeah, in this phase there are 6 deliverable work product that is going to be prepared by the architect. Most notably, the conceptual design of the exterior and the interior of the proposed library, which will be developed again after a building programming event that seeks input from community stakeholders. After that phase, the project will move on to, in terms of architectural services, to more detailed, to the development of more detailed plans, the design phase, and then after that, you get into procurement and construction. So the contract is set up to, so that each phase will be the subject of a different contract to be negotiated. So I think that's the way this is going to progress in phases as directed by the owner.
To add to that, 2 points I want to clarify is that Laura's already negotiated a lot of the terms that would still apply in future contracts, so she's already come to agreement with them on those terms, which is great. Additionally, one of the main pieces that we were really concerned with was the copyrights and licenses. So we wanted to make sure whatever work was done in this first design phase is applicable in the future, regardless of whether we proceed with the same architect firm or whether we select a different architect firm. And Laura did an excellent job with making sure that that was the case. So whatever work that is done, if we, for any reason, choose not to proceed with the same architect, we would be able to use that work still and have another architect pick up with it and continue to make our building happen with those plans.
The goal of this phase is to have a work product that the library board can use in its fundraising efforts. That's fair, right?
Absolutely. The whatever product comes out will be detailed enough that we'll be able to get citizen feedback, library feedback, but it will also be at a level that further work will be needed to get it to the place where we would be able to put it out to bids. They would still need to do construction documents, so we would be able to change the plans if needed moving forward. Once our budget is finally determined, which is part of the MOU agreement, which is an important piece for us.
So are there questions? No, Matt, go ahead.
So my understanding is that after this conceptual phase is completed, that will provide an additional layer of information, including cost-related, that you'll be able to use, and so you can assess where are you from a fundraising standpoint, what is this looking like in terms of from a cost standpoint, and then the library board and the village board can make adjustments if needed. That's
absolutely true. A part of the RFP, which we reviewed previously, but I'll just highlight, was revisiting the space needs assessment to make sure that the space that we're asking for is what we really need, and then updated cost estimates in what in today's dollars would the space that we need cost, which will perhaps adjust our fundraising goal, but may or may not. So.
And just to clarify, we asked for detailed cost estimates, and there was a little bit of pushback on that. So. The architect anticipates providing cost estimates on a $1 per square foot level. So it's going to be preliminary and high level cost estimates.
And this all should be done by May, correct?
Yeah, it's a roughly 12-week, so it kind of depends on when we schedule our initial kickoff session to get the ball rolling, but I would expect that we'd have a final product in May or June.
So are there questions or comments from the library board or the village board? Ready?
So probably for Laura, when I went through the contract, 11.8.2, it talks about expenses incurred by the architect and the architect's consultants, plus 10%. I just wondered, Laura, is that kind of standard?
It is standard, and it won't, but it's irrelevant in this contract because reimbursable expenses are capped at 540.
Okay.
So
all right.
They can add 100%.
Got it. Okay.
Going forward, that's going to be stricken.
Okay.
We didn't fight about it at this
Okay.
stage because
All
of
right.
the cap.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry?
Yes, the question I have is, well, I have several, but the first question I have is that I'm assuming that the architect selected is OPN Architects?
Correct.
Okay. How many architects submitted proposals? for
We
this?
had 10 architect firms select proposals. We selected 4 of those firms for interviews, and then OPN was the top firm selected as a result of our interview process.
Okay, who did the interviewing? I've lost track of the
A
process.
subcommittee of 4 members of the library board.
Okay.
I can give you names if that's helpful.
No,
Yeah.
I don't need the names. What caused OPN to get selected, I guess is going to be.
There were a multitude of factors that went into evaluating the original proposals. Cost was a factor, library experience, municipal experience were some of the initial factors that went into reviewing the proposals. We had to make sure we selected somebody that would be in the best interest of the village and that we would be able to fund in a responsible fashion. I know Jeannie was in on that, so if she has something to add, she can add to that. Once we got to the panel of 4 firms, they were all very impressive, and I think we would have been happy to work with any of them. They all had a lot of library experience, including libraries like Fitchburg and Verona, a lot of libraries in the area. Ultimately, OPN was selected for a variety of reasons. One, they have a very data-driven decision-making process, so we were pretty impressed with how they solicit community input. They document that process very carefully, and they use it to make decision-making about their process, which is important for us since we have funding as we choose how to use the funds that we have available. They're very good at presentations and community speaking, which we thought would be very helpful as we present to the community. They do benchmarking with other libraries, so they can they have a database of library spaces, I guess I would say, so they can check and see if what we're thinking we need really fits with what other libraries actually have. There's a lot of other reasons, but I'm nervous, so I'm drawing a blank right now. I apologize.
Why don't we nervous?
But recently they just worked on the Wanakee Library, which is under construction right now, so they have done libraries recently as well.
Okay. No, those are very good reasons.
We also checked references for all 4 of the finalist firms, and OPN did have excellent references.
Oh, good. That was my next question.
They're doing the youth center too.
They're doing the youth center too? Okay, thank you.
And Ticey too, Jerry.
And Ticey. Okay, my next question was going to be, are there any examples of their work? I don't need to ask that one now. I'm going to assume that Laura or Matt reviewed this contract and you're fine with it.
Yes.
Okay, good. Can you give me like 1 or 2 examples of the amendments you made?
Well, Laura's looking at that. I do have their original proposal here, which has all their, it has photos of their municipal and library experience.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to take a look at this, I'll bring it up. It shows a lot of information and photos from each of the library projects they worked on.
Okay.
And you should have received that in a recent packet, but if you haven't, I'm happy to provide a copy for you too.
No, I'll just look at that one. Thank you. Okay. And I guess we'll see more going forward with the youth center and the
Ticey.
Ticey, yeah. I don't know how I'll see Ticey, but the youth center will be available. Go ahead.
2.2, we added a provision which clarifies the standard of care to be exercised by the architect. So basically, the architect has to perform its services in a manner consistent with the standard of care ordinarily provided by those architects who specialize in providing these types of services for these types of projects in this area. 2.6 is the broad indemnification provision, which protects the village from not only third-party claims, and this is certainly more important as we move on, if we move forward with this architect, but also for breach of contract claims. So that's a provision where we often encounter a lot of pushback from professionals, but OPN accommodated our request. Another big change was in the scope of services. We were able to convince OPN to agree to essentially an unlimited number of meetings with the village board and the library board to meetings that would be necessary in terms of producing the product and explaining the product. So I think that was a big benefit to the village. So all those meetings are part of the basic services that are included in that $45,000 flat fee.
Including a meeting in front of the planning commission, right, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds very thorough, thanks. We talked about how the fee was determined. I guess that Randy asked about that. Last question is going to be regarding the structure itself. And I'm only asking that because there were problems with the current library as it was being built. I remember the gutter system, HVAC, I mean, I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but what is going to be done this time to prevent that, or try and prevent it? I realize this is a big project, and you can't get through a big project like this without some hiccup. But the resolution of problems, is there a warranty on this? Resolution as the construction's going on and somebody sees something, who's going to be the on-the-spot quality control person?
There's a couple things that I'll mention regarding that. First of all, the library board has not yet determined whether or not to engage a construction manager, which we've gotten some documents from Attorney Dregney on that. That's a potential service we could use. There's a cost that goes along with it, but it helps with some of the construction administration to kind of verify those issues as you go through. Most architects do construction administration as part of their services, but we are required to take the low public bid on the project. We're required to put it out for public bid, which means the lowest bidder often gets the project unless there's a reason to exclude them from getting awarded the contract. So, that is a factor, but typically the architect is responsible for that. Many of the aspects of the building are under warranty, so, the HVAC or, such typically do have a warranty, but you also have to make sure you move to resolve those issues promptly before the warranty runs out. So I guess I would say it is multifaceted. I'm going to let Matt or Laura comment on that more if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a contracts point of view, we would aim to make the general contractor and, liable for defects in the work, and also try to impose liability on the architect to the extent there's a design defect. So, I mean, the best defense is a strong contract.
Yeah, the best one I can think of is roof lines that come together and there's leaks there, and I know they had trouble with HVAC, so the police station when that was built. So I'm concerned about preventing that on this building, and as is the board, I'm sure.
Can I just comment on that, Jim?
Sure.
One thing I think that I'm observing with the process here is that it's a very hands-on process by the library board and the village board at each step of the process to be careful. So I would expect that there will be a lot of discussion with the architects about how to avoid those kinds of problems and continuing engagement by the owner here. That doesn't necessarily mean that you won't have a problem.
Right.
But Laura will do what she can through the contracts to mean that if somebody has failed to do their job correctly, we have a remedy. But obviously, the best course is to avoid a problem in the first place. And I think you're going to be more effective in avoiding a problem through the kind of engagement that we see here and having a really good process and careful design process, work with a good architect, ask all the right questions, ask about the HVAC. Are we getting something tried and true, or?
Is the construction manager, I guess you referred to him as the day-to-day quality control person? What would you call that, Jeff?
I'd be a construction manager.
Yeah, construction manager. Is that something you?
Can I ask Laura to respond to that, because she's really thought about kind of how that process
Yeah.
could play out?
in many ways, the role of the construction manager, the construction manager can take on some of the responsibilities that would typically be assigned to the architect in helping develop a cost of the work, for example. The thought is that the construction manager is closer to the construction industry and so can better estimate costs, and also can help resolve disputes or interface between the architect and the general contractor where disagreements arise in the construction process and the interpretation of the architect's plans. So I see the role of the construction manager after the design phase.
So there will be one, is that what you're telling me?
No, I don't think the library board has decided on how they want to proceed.
Okay.
We've gotten significant documentation from Laura and the research that she's done in the past on the subject, so that'll be taken under advisement when we
Okay.
consider it.
All right, okay. Jeff, how do you feel about that? No, I mean,
Well,
the reason, let me tell you why I'm asking you.
No, I know.
If something happens over there and the warranty runs out, guess who's on the hook?
The library.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah, the
library.
library board.
Oh, I thought you would be.
Nope, the library.
Right, the way it's structured, the library will be on the hook for all of that.
For curing any potential
Yeah,
problems. Okay,
but I can speak, just from a standpoint as far as, they're only going right now through conceptual design, which
Right.
will not look at necessarily types of gutters and
No,
that
no.
detailed type of stuff, so, but I think they're on the exact same path, the right path they need to be, which is looking at options of whether, if you have a really good contractors, then sometimes the architect or engineer can handle things very well. If you have a really bad contractor, then the money you invest in a construction manager is extremely well spent money because they're there all the time overseeing things. I think the most recent example we have of a good construction manager was the construction at Jefferson Crossing across the way there. That gentleman was out there every day and still is, by there, repeatedly, and he could be he or she, but could easily monitor what's going on a day-to-day basis, resolve conflicts, all those type of things.
And I will say one of the references had hired this firm at least 3 times. And the fact that they all gave stellar references, that doesn't mean there's not the potential to be issues, but how they resolve the issues led to, high recommendations. As you see in the book, they've done a multitude of libraries, so this isn't, one of their first times. We're not a guinea pig. They have established reputation of doing that. So hopefully that there were some lessons learned in those projects as well about what works well in a municipal setting as well.
yeah, I expect that there will be problems. I think I'm being realistic. And
No, they're usually something, yeah.
Right, and I'm not trying to be real picky here, but I guess my memory is
Careful. You're being careful.
careful.
May I add something as well? One of the things that did strike us as we were interviewing OPN was that they had, now I'm going to get the title of his position wrong, but their structural or environmental engineer was extremely engaged and was someone that Kyle had worked with in the past as well. And they had specific statements about our parcel of land and what that might mean about the structural engineering that might need to go into the design. And I think for me, that is also comforting that they already are thinking about maybe the challenges of our particular piece of land in this.
Thank you. What about the length of the warranty? Has that been established yet?
That's not part of this particular
Okay.
contract.
That's a different phase of the process. Okay. Thanks for being patient with my questions.
Thank you for asking them.
Matt, yes.
We haven't even started yet to think about the actual contract that we'll have for construction. And that will have to be a publicly bid contract. And I think we'll want to give some thought, some ahead of time, to the implications of that. And whether there's, there are things we can do to position ourselves optimally in terms of getting a good contractor.
Correct.
So we'll have to start thinking about that as we get closer to that step of the process.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments from trustees or the library board? Anyone? Okay, so this comes back then to item number 6. And thank you, Laura, for your input and work on this, bringing it forward. Item 6 is action by the library board to approve the agreement, so we'll need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Then it comes to the village board, and we need a motion, please, for approval.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carries. Great. Another good night.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
You
I make
do.
a motion to adjourn the library board.
We still have the action by the village board.
We
We
did.
just did that. I'm so far behind. Wow. Thank you.
I'll
We're
second
speedy.
the motion to adjourn.
Okay, so there's most to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You're adjourned.
That's what he asked.
No.
He's got it.
Okay, that takes us to item 9, which is public appearances. The first item A, discussion possible board direction regarding vaping regulations. And item 1, we have a draft ordinance relating to electronic smoking devices and providing tobacco products to minors. And we'll also be getting information from Ryan Sheehan, who is a program coordinator for Tobacco Free Coalition. So, anybody want to start with any comments or questions on the draft ordinance about electronic smoking devices and providing tobacco to minors?
So, Steve, maybe you want to, maybe Matt should explain what's in the ordinance.
Okay.
And what's not in the ordinance. Maybe that's, so the board
Sure.
maybe will not understand why we don't have this on for action at
Okay.
this point. Please.
Yeah, it's on just for discussion tonight because there may be, well, you'll be discussing the scope of this and whether you want to do more than what this does. So it's been a little bit, been a little while since I looked at this, but as I recall, there are really two things happening with this. One was to prohibit the use of tobacco products, or now expanding this to include electronic smoking devices on school grounds. Previously, tobacco on school grounds was prohibited. This would add electronic smoking devices, otherwise called vaping devices, I guess. And then the other thing we did was add a provision to make it unlawful for an adult to provide tobacco or vaping products to an underage person. So we did receive some feedback from, I think, the fellow who's here tonight, just questioning whether the village would want to expand the prohibition on the use of electronic smoking devices to go beyond prohibiting that on just school grounds, expand that to include other public places. Did you include the Madison ordinance?
Yeah, I think it's in there.
Yeah, Matt, it's in here.
Okay, so one of the things that you have in your packet is the City of Madison's ordinance, which does in fact prohibit the use of those devices on a pretty broad at a pretty broad range of places, including places of employment, public places, restaurants, and so on. You can, we can go through it if you want to go through it. And I guess when Mike and I talked about this issue, when the question was raised, are we going as far as we would want to go? I didn't know the answer to that. I said, we thought, well, that's a board decision. So that's where we are. We put it on so you guys could have this conversation of whether you want to expand the scope of that to include not only school grounds, but other places. I would say the use of these devices by a minor is unlawful any place. So we're really talking about whether the board would want to regulate the use of, say, a vaping device by an adult at the other kinds of places that, for example, Madison regulates. Places of employment, for example, could get interesting in terms of, there are lots of different kinds of places that people work. And I guess it's just a policy decision for the board, what you want to do with that.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yep.
So, any questions right now for Matt? Not, then we'll have Ryan Sheehan come up and talk to us and then go from there. Does that sound all right? Okay, Ryan, you're on. Amy, if you want to join Ryan, that's fine. Welcome, Ryan and Amy.
Thanks, Steve, for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks to all for having me here tonight. Yeah, so I was part of my role within Public Health Madison-Dane County and the Tobacco Free Coalition is just to assess policy and give input. And so when I saw the language, I know it did not include public workplaces, and so there are many throughout the state that do include public workplaces. There are 14 villages that do include it, including Beaver Dam, Madison, Marshfield, Onalaska, Wausau, for example. Typically what they do is just adopt a statewide law. We do have a statewide smoke-free air law on the books that includes public workplaces, which is why you cannot smoke in restaurants, bars, workplaces here in Oregon, for example. It's a statewide law. And so these villages are taking that a step further and adding these vaping devices or electronic smoking devices into their on top of that smoke-free air law for the state. And so basically what that does is it says you cannot use vaping devices wherever you cannot smoke cigarettes in workplaces. And so that's a simple explanation for that. We know that these vaping devices do have cancer-causing chemicals, and so within public health, we educate about the fact that we try to do our best to protect the public from secondhand smoke, but also the vaping aerosol as well. So I just wanted to, I brought that back just to see what the thoughts were of the board on that, to include public workplaces. And I noticed one other thing I noticed on there was the definition of electronic smoking device. The model language also includes nicotine or any other substance, which can include, we've seen youth and adults, vape marijuana, vape alcohol, and things like that. So if you remove the any other substance, you're just saying nicotine, which is fine. But just as a heads up that the language in the draft ordinance does not include any other substance. So those are the two things that I'm here to educate about. Yep, I can answer any other questions as well.
Okay,
So,
thanks, Ryan.
yeah.
Amy, did you want to make any comments here? Or?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I think we'll open it to the board.
So are there questions for Ryan? Or discussion, Amanda?
Well, I'm not sure how we. I was reviewing the Madison ordinances, and it seems unusually and unnecessarily complicated. I'm wondering if any other municipalities have just taken an approach and said wherever smoking is prohibited by state law, we also are prohibiting vaping and all that, and just
Yeah.
make a blanket sort of, I don't even know if that's possible legally, but just to keep it simple, if smoking is prohibited, all this other stuff is too.
Yeah, I would say that's what I would do actually. So I would just adopt the state statute, which is 101.123, and then just add the model language into that. And so that's all you would have to do actually. The city of Madison's pretty cumbersome. They actually did it before the state went smoke-free, so it had a bunch of other definitions and things. The Dane County ordinance is also included in there. The Dane County ordinance actually covers your surrounding towns around Oregon. So anywhere in Dunn and Rutland and the town of Oregon already has vaping ordinance included in their policy. So you cannot vape in those workplaces there. So it's basically sort of expanding onto that jurisdiction, I guess you could say. So I did. Yep.
So Ryan, does the state ordinance have the other thing about or other substances as well? Is that in there?
It did not,
No.
so state law does not include vaping
Okay.
language, yeah, so
Okay.
it wouldn't have that
We would,
definition in it.
okay.
That's correct, so yeah.
Can I just ask a technical question about that? So
Sure, if I could.
the definition, so the definition
Yeah.
that I put in here says, defines an electronic smoking device as
Yep,
any device that a person can use for inhaling vapor or aerosol, and any product containing nicotine that can be used with such a device. And you had a suggestion for modifying that. Can you tell me what that suggestion was?
yeah, I
again?
think the intent was just to notify you that, the model language actually includes nicotine or any other substance. So, because sometimes people so if you define it just as nicotine and the actual nicotine liquid, someone could still use these devices. If you were to go ahead and actually have an ordinance for public workplaces, someone could still use this device with marijuana and still vape marijuana in a workplace then. So you're
Okay,
not
but-
defining the actual substance, you're defining more of the device as well.
All right, so this definition is kind of broken into two parts. The first
Okay.
part is any device that a person can use for inhaling vapor or aerosol.
Yep.
That's one thing.
So that could be anything, I guess you're
Could
saying.
be any,
acid.
yep.
Okay, so then,
And then it says, and any product containing nicotine that can be used with such a device.
okay, yeah.
That gets, does it make sense from your standpoint to say, and any product containing nicotine or other substance, or
Any
other
other
substance
yep.
that can be used with such a device?
Yes, I think that'd be
Okay.
correct, yeah. But if your intent was to cover that anyway, I think reading it that way, I think it actually does cover any substance, because you say can use for inhaling vapor or aerosol. It doesn't define what kind of aerosol it is. So if you're saying it's marijuana aerosol, then it could cover that. So,
Would this be, though, in your, given your experience with this area, is
Sure.
that first part, is that a technically correct way to define the device? A device that a person can use for inhaling vapor or aerosol? I don't know anything about these, so is that a
Yeah.
correct way to say it?
yes and no. And I can read our model sort of language, which most people are using. So it means any product containing or delivering nicotine or any other substance intended for human consumption, I'm not sure if you need to say that, that can be used by a person in any manner for the purpose of inhaling vapor or aerosol. So yes, I mean, it's very similar. So I would say what you have, I think, is okay.
Okay. So I think the big question, sorry for the board, is do you want to, as suggested, modify this ordinance to say anywhere where you're not allowed to smoke cigarettes, for example, you're not allowed to use one of these devices? We haven't gone that far, whether you're an adult or, yeah.
Randy?
I would say yes. I'd like to see all public workplaces and then the other substances be included in the language.
I would too.
Looks like that's where people are headed.
You need a motion for that?
It'd be good
Yeah, that's
as a motion.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion for that, to include public workplaces and some language, however we define any other substance.
I'll make those changes and bring it back and have it at your next meeting.
Great. I'll second that.
Thank you. So is there further discussion? So we have the motion and second to have the ordinance extend to any other substances and any place where you're not allowed to smoke. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Give it time.
Can I
Thank you,
ask
Ryan.
you, maybe to compile some sort of list of a little bit of research just that demonstrates to the public? Yeah, because if we get any pushback on this, we just want to make sure we say, look, they're just as bad as cigarettes. Here's the research. Thank you.
So we actually have one that we created for copy today, and a second one, which is a nice overview with additional information, including the best practice, where exactly what you said is written right here. Nice job. But this is a variety of information from a variety of sources. And when you think of e-cigarettes and how quickly they came into being, right now, there's much more awareness and a lot of research being done. There's a variety of organizations talking about indoor air quality, the World Health Organization. There's a lot of research that you can use pretty quickly to say this is what people follow.
And we can put this in maybe the packet where when this ordinance comes up before the public, we can include this information so they can review it too.
I'm sorry, man.
Because these ordinances are going to come up for a vote, and the public has the opportunity to speak to it, and we want the public to be able to see this too, so maybe get this in the packet.
For the first reading, I'll put this in the
Thank you.
packet.
Yeah, that's
Sure. And then I made a note, I'll make sure Judy knows about it too, so the chamber can
Yeah,
get the word out.
that's a good idea.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you.
We had a
Appreciate it.
motion in a second, but you didn't call it.
Didn't
We didn't vote?
I?
I thought we did.
Oh. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I thought I did.
I think we're good.
Maybe it was up against something, yes.
Consensus over here is that I did, just so you know. I don't feel quite so old that way. Okay, item 10, village attorney, village administrator. Item A, update regarding interviewing process for director of planning and zoning administrator position, possible board direction. And does the village board want to provide President Staton and Trustee Carpenter with the authority to make a conditional offer of employment to the selected candidate contingent on passing a police background, or does the full board want to make the conditional offer at the March 4th board meeting? Please note that if the selected candidate passes a background, the full board would make the final appointment to the position.
I'll make a motion to allow you and Trustee Carpenter to make a conditional offer of employment as you detailed.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you for that.
We will proceed. Item B, discussion of possible action regarding review of pond hockey and recreational immunity legal opinion. Recommended motion is to refer to the park board for consideration. Staff's recommendation will be to prohibit rinks with sideboards to be constructed in stormwater areas.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so that motion is to, and second is to refer to the park board. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Should I go to 15A, right?
If you did, sure.
Okay.
Mr. Glenn.
So Chief Lensmeyer is in the back of the room there. He can't hear back there. Would you like to do your item right now?
That would be great.
I thought you'd like that. Come on up then. So item 15, communication miscellaneous business. Item A, discussion of possible action regarding the village's share of the fire truck purchase by Oregon Area Fire EMS. The recommended motion is to approve the village's share, which is $128,179 of fire truck purchase, excuse me, by Oregon Area Fire EMS, funding from the 2019 borrowing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
That was easy.
You got to make some comments so before
The
we
easy
vote.
comments is this is just, again, follow through from the, our capital outlay plan from last budget season and moving this forward. We've found a great deal here on buying this used apparatus for a couple $100,000 versus $600,000. It'll give us about 7 years. We'll be getting it painted red, making it look like a fire truck instead of green. And it'll be very well utilized here in the Oregon district.
Okay. Any questions for Chief?
Chief, this was Fitchburg's, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Chief, what are you going to do with the old one?
The old one, what we'll do is just part of the whole 2019 budget is basically put it out for bids. We'll either sell it over at the surplus over in Wisconsin State Surplus, or we'll find some vendor out there that we can actually have sell it, that kind of thing, put it out for bids and see what we can get out of it. We're not going to get a lot of money, Jerry, maybe $3,000 to $5,000 max.
Okay.
That truck is a 95, so it's seen its better days. Maybe a good parade vehicle.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.
I just want to thank Chief for his leadership. You know, since he got to the district, he's been really diligent about making sure that we're aware of where we sit with regards to the assets that the fire station has and helping us to project and anticipate and prepare for these capital improvements that we need to make. And I just really appreciate all the work you put into it. And I believe the firefighter EMS personnel appreciate it too, having you championing them.
Well, thanks, Jeff, and again, the fire district appreciates it, the community appreciates it, it's all that kind of stuff. Believe me, Mike and Lisa keep reminding me about how many dollars we spend on the capital plans and how the fire district is. It's just one of those things we have to continually upgrade our apparatus, be able to deal with all the building and construction, everything else that's happening here in the village and amongst the fire district itself. So, again, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So we have the motion and second to approve the village share, which is $128,179, the fire truck purchase by Oregon Area Fire EMS. The funding is from 2019 borrowing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank
And
you,
as
sir.
Jeff said, we appreciate the good job. You really leveled stuff off the fire department. We appreciate
We
it.
try.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
You're doing well. Okay, takes us back to item 11, approval of minutes, February 4th, 2019.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 12, approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight in the amount of $483,749.65 for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a couple. Lisa, the computer magic payments, I assume those are maintenance Software maintenance, is that what that's for?
That's for the support that they provide for us.
Okay, is that for a year, for a month, for?
That is, well, this 10,000 is 2 months worth. It's about $5,000 a month.
5,000 a month? Okay.
That's awesome. You're so smart.
Anyone else have questions while Jerry takes a quick look here?
And municipal property insurance, is that an annual premium, monthly premium?
I think it's the annual.
Oh, the property insurance?
Yeah. Is that,
Is that the quarterly one? What is what page is that on, Jerry?
that's on page 7.
That one might be annual.
That was annual, yes.
That's the amount showing is our annual share, so I would guess it's annual
Yeah.
for everybody else too.
Some of them are broken down quarterly, but that one's yearly.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Anyone else? Okay, so we have vouchers tonight, amount of $483,749.65. Roll call, please.
Glish,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Wallig.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Item 13 is community input. Anyone in the audience who would like to address the board tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item 14, proclamations and announcements, board comments. Amanda?
Just a quick one. I had the pleasure of attending an awards ceremony for a great teacher that we have at Netherwood Knoll, which is in the village. So it was the Save Our Species Award, and there was a luncheon at the Edgewater Hotel, and conservationists from all over flew in, and it was a really nice award. I'm looking to get something in the Observer. Maybe I'll talk to you. And anyway, I just wanted to give some kudos where they're due there. We're doing a lot in the village about conserving our water and our species and, lots of different things. So just wanted to
Thank you. Anyone else?
shut up.
You will go to B, staff comments. You're up.
Well, I was looking at Rachel.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look
That's
far enough
okay.
down there.
That's
Rachel,
okay.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
And actually, my comments are a great follow-up to Amanda's because the Senior Center just wants to invite the public and make you all aware that Dane County Executive Joe Parisi is going to be at the center this Wednesday at 10:30 in the morning talking about what the county is doing at the county level to try and preserve our environment and to try and foster more renewable energy use in the county. So he's coming at 10:30, and we'd like to see a nice turnout because I think it's another opportunity for us to interact with somebody who's making decisions that really affect and impact all of our lives. So come on out to the Senior Center Wednesday, 10:30, to see County Executive Parisi.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Item 2, their upcoming meetings.
We're actually going to have a Public Works meeting next week. So that would be Jeff, Jerry, and Amanda.
Okay.
What? I'm on the Public Works Committee?
You are Jeff, you are the chair.
So that's going
I
to
had to
be
check my roster, but you are definitely the chair.
the 25th?
25th.
Any exciting things on the agenda? Should the rest of us come?
We'll be talking about the facilities plan. I know, the wastewater treatment plant facilities plan. So that's going to be the presentation by the engineer, just talk about flows and demands and
Cool.
kind of their framework, finalizing their report.
You know, meetings with Jeff are always exciting, so we know that's coming up. Any other
You don't wanna
staff
miss
with a
that.
comment?
You don't want to miss that.
Maybe we'll find about
Any other
about
staff?
70 sold.
Okay. Communication, miscellaneous business, item 15. We did A. Item B, discussion possible action, rectangular rapid flashing beacons at Oregon Middle School. Recommend a motion to approve the purchase and installation of one complete RRFB unit for Pleasant Oak Drive to be installed at the existing Oregon Middle School crosswalk, funding to be from Fund 414 and Oregon School District.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to actually I'm going to ask that this may be forwarded to the Public Works Committee meeting
Personnel meeting.
Huh?
Personnel?
Or, well, personnel and public safety. Are we going to have personnel? Okay. So we also have a personnel and public safety meeting before that. Chief has some concerns. I think there's some valid concerns. And we're still trying to hear back from the school district of whether or not their intention is to pull the crossing guard at this location. And the feeling of that, that's, these aren't meant to take the place of a crossing guard, I guess is the point being. So does that summarize it pretty well?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the information that we got is the crossing guard is going to be going away at that location that the school supplies, and when that happens, they want to install the flashing beacon as a substitute. And I have some concerns about that, so I'd like to talk about that further.
Okay.
Well, an approval doesn't mean they have to buy it or install it, right? It just means that the board's okay with it if that's what they choose to do.
It depends on what your motion is. I mean, if your motion, this is the motion to approve the purchase and installation of one, so
And you're requesting that we hold off on this until it goes to public safety?
I would request that you refer this to Personnel and Public Safety Commission.
Okay.
And then we bring it back before the village board after it goes through that.
Okay. So we'd have to table this, Matt, is that the correct procedure?
Or motion to refer to the committee.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to refer to committee.
I'll second that.
That's okay, even though there's a motion on the board, because it refers to that motion?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion second to refer to Public Works. Any discussion on that?
Personnel and Public Safety.
I'm sorry. Yeah. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We did.
While we're still on the subject
Yeah.
of crosswalk, I just wanted to say I did hear back from a person at the park, by Wisco there. What's that
Yeah,
intersection?
Janesville.
Janesville and
Perry
Perry
Parkway.
Parkway.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
and the situation is much improved.
That's what we
So
said, too.
she said, thank you very much for
Yeah.
that, and just as an update, that's all.
Okay. So item C, discussion of possible action regarding the village's emergency operations plan. Recommended motion is to approve that plan, and we did receive this information via email earlier to read that. So we need that motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Comments?
So I trust that everyone's read this almost 100-page document thoroughly.
I did.
I'm ready for the
Yeah.
test.
Yes.
I got questions for you.
Read it all.
Excellent.
I do too.
Just to give you an overview, this is a guide, basically. And some of the most important information on the guide is at the beginning of it. Because anytime you have an emergency situation, you want to be able to get a hold of the resources that you need. And so the first part of it, obviously, is emergency telephone listings. We're making sure that that's up to date and as thorough as we can. The rest of it is basically what we hope to be doing when emergency occurs, and how we go about doing that. So it's kind of extensive. We can't memorize all this information, but it's there for us to, as a tool, as a resource, to be able to kind of navigate through some of these things. So I'm happy to take questions.
And Brian, don't we need to have this in place to be accredited, right?
Yeah, this is part of the accreditation process as well. But more importantly, it's
Right.
really to help us through any kind of disaster.
Right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Questions? Randy, go ahead.
So, Chief, I did read every one.
I appreciate
I
that.
did.
Yeah.
So the first question I had is in the bias-based policing, it references.
Oh, no, we're on the emergency
Oh, I'm sorry.
management plan, Brian.
Yeah, not.
We're not quite to the policies
Oh,
yet. We're on the
all right.
emergency operations.
All right, you
plan.
just wait then.
I'll wait for
Okay.
that one as well.
So the
Yeah.
question I do have a question about the. So it's interesting to me that none of the trustees are mentioned anywhere in this as helping, and I just because
It's not, oh,
because we mentioned the president of the board and I just thought, well, as elected, wouldn't we somehow?
Well, it kind of, yeah, if you don't mind, it kind of goes down in succession. So
Okay.
if the president's not available, we go to the vice president. The vice president's not available, then we kind of go down the board. But when you're dealing with this type of these type of emergencies, you want to limit the number of
Right.
people that you have
Okay.
in the room and that type of thing. So it's not to say that you're going to be excluded per se, but we have to make sure that we have the right resources and the
Okay.
amount of resources that we can handle at one time.
I did read this one too. But I mean, I would be the first one to step up to help. So I just
Yeah.
it was just interesting that we weren't in there. So, but I understand.
Other questions? Brian, on the page where it has Operations Center alerting list, my phone number needs to be changed.
Sure. And that's going to be a revolving process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, like, we have a new building inspector, Candy Cott, that I didn't catch.
See,
so,
there you
yeah.
go. The great thing about it is the listing is that it's there. The bad thing is that it's ever changing. So.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I did write having Dane County Public Health's number in the front. I know we have a section in the document, but having their phone number in the front, I thought was maybe important. Dane County Public Health.
As long as we're able to get it when we need it, it doesn't really matter where it is in this section. As long as we're able to get it, though, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Okay, it's been a motion second to approve the emergency operations plan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item D, review of the following police department policies by Chief Ewell and possible board action. Recommended motion is to approve the police department policies.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is also a part of the accreditation process. It's kind of overwhelming, and I apologize for giving them to all at once, but it's kind of how the process worked. Thankfully, as being an accreditation manager, being an assessor, being a lead assessor, I have resources through all the other agencies so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Basically, I need to make a lot of these policies fit our department and how we work and how the agency works. And so when I'm doing that, I'm not only writing the policies, but I'm also putting them out for the officers, the sergeants, and everyone else to review. And then I also have them, I have other people checking to make sure we have everything in there properly, spell check, that type of thing. So it just kind of snowballed into, we all kind of came to it once. So we did break it down for you, so you don't get them all at once. Also, to let you know, and as part of the accreditation process, keep in mind that the state only requires 11 policies that are mandated by the state. I'm going to eventually give you 42 policies. Our department is eventually going to have about 9 times that many policies, and it's kind of overwhelming. But really, if you think about it, like I told the officers as well, this is the stuff that we're already doing anyway. We're just now documenting that we have it down in policy, and then when we do the accreditation aspect of it, we provide proofs that show that we're following our policies, so that when the assessors come in, they can say, yep, you have the policies, and the proofs also show that you're following your policies. And so every 3 years, they're going to come in and evaluate us to make sure that we're following everything that we have down here, which is almost 90 policies, basically. So as you can see on the basically the outline of the policies, I'll put in the issue date, when they're reviewed, that type of thing, but you'll see down here under standard, it tells you and everyone else what standard this applies to. And there's 235 standards or something like that. So that's why you need 90 policies or more to cover all those things. Mike also asked me to touch base a little bit about each one of these policies. And really, if you're able to read them or not, if you look at the purpose statement of the policies, it really gives you a general idea of what the policy is and why we're going to need it. Obviously, active shooter, that's pretty self-explanatory. We want to make sure that our officers are prepared to handle an active shooter, not only by the training purposes and the things that we do training-wise, but we also want to set forth some guidelines to kind of help them along the way as well. So the active shooter policy is addressed in accreditation, and this policy kind of gives the officers an idea of what needs to be done, how it's supposed to be done, just like the rest of the policies, and what their responsibilities are. Any questions specifically on active shooter? No. Okay. Acts of terrorism. So this is another one of those mandated policies. Thankfully, in Oregon, we don't have a big need for this, but you just never know. You have Highway 14 going through here. You never know what kind of people that you're going to pull over. We have businesses here, so there are all kinds of things that can happen here. But again, this just establishes guidelines on what we need to do and who we need to contact for that. Questions on this policy? Okay. You guys stop me when you have questions. How's that? Administrative reporting. This is just basically how the department takes reports, who we're going to disseminate that information to, and how we're going to do that. No questions there? Okay. Alarms. Again, we pretty much do this already, but this is basically how our officers are supposed to report to alarms. It's really important that just because, and you guys as the general public don't understand that we get alarms on a routine basis. And 99% or so of those alarms are false. But we can't go in thinking it that way, so we have to make sure that we're responding the same way every time, that our officers are trained how to respond, and this kind of gives them guidance on how to do that. Questions on this policy? No. I know there's questions on this next policy. Bias-based policing. Again, part of the accreditation process, as all of these are. Just kind of gives the officers, reinforces what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to do it in regards to this. Making sure that we're doing the best we can to serve the citizens of the community. So I know you had a question on this, Randy?
I do. It references internal affairs policy, but I bet that's
That's
when
coming.
it's coming.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. That was it?
Yeah, that was it for me.
Whew. Body armor. We issue everyone body armor. This policy just basically says if we issue it, we want to expect you to wear it, and the information that goes along with that. Bomb threats. Again, talking about what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it in regards to bomb threats. This is kind of another one of those that goes along with the alarms, that they're not always true and accurate, but we have to take all of them as seriously as we can. So this gives them an idea of what they're supposed to do and who they're supposed to contact.
I got a question on that.
Oh, go.
So I'm just looking for some background information on this, because I know in an active shooter situation, the first person decides whether they're going in or not, but it's all saving lives. If somebody calls in a bomb threat, and I mean, most of the time they're not legitimate, but sometimes they are, all of a sudden it seems like it says that the person that goes to the site is there in an advisory capacity, and that try to get a custodian or janitor or somebody who knows the building to go on do a search, and you kind of let them do the search. And I thought it just seems very different than the active shooter. Why is that?
Well, I don't know that it's different than the active shooter. Basically, what we're trying to establish when we get there is this a credible threat? And then how are we going to determine that's a credible threat? And the best way to do that sometimes is use the resources that are there. I don't know that we would necessarily have janitors pointing the way, but we would get information from them. They're in the buildings all the time, and they see and do things that we can only hope to do. So we just want to use the resources that we can. So you're right. And most of the time they're not legitimate complaints, but we need to make sure that they are. And then we're going to use that as much as we can. I can tell you that this is a standard policy that almost every accredited agency uses and how they use that. So I didn't reinvent the wheel on this one. We're going to use what's state practices, and that's what this is.
Okay. I just thought it was interesting because it says, strongly suggest that the owner of that does this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. But you don't have the authority to go in and say, we're going to help you search the building now. You have to suggest that. It was just like kind of more hands off.
The wording is careful because we have to determine how we're going to handle that. Most of the time, if we determine that it is a credible threat, we're not having anybody search. We're going to call the bomb squad in. So, strongly suggest, may, should. Those are all policy languages that you kind of have to be careful how you want to do it, because you don't want to put anyone in a position that could lead to disastrous consequences because you put it down in the policy wrong.
Okay. There we go. That was now I'm seeing.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Yep.
Chief, I got an easy one.
Go.
Page 2, and I have some other ones as we go forward, but some of them, EOD isn't spelled out. I mean, just if you could just say what EOD is. When I was reading, I wasn't really sure. I had to sort of guess.
We can do that, but that's,
Oh.
those are law enforcement acronyms, and
Oh,
that's really kind of who the policy is written for.
Public, like I didn't know what they were. We don't need to know?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, who would read the document?
This is for our officers.
Okay.
This is for police
So
department
if
personnel.
they know, then fine.
Yeah.
But it's something that the general public, upon request, could access?
Yeah, we're going to have I shouldn't say that. We're going to have most of these policies online that they can look at. So I guess I didn't really necessarily write it out so the public may not know exactly everything that's happening.
It's later in the
Yeah.
under that topic. It's later in there. I thought that when I was reading it too. I thought, "What's the EOD?" But when I got to the bottom, I did notice
it. Is at the last
So
page, but
Well, normally, I suppose I should have put that under the first one.
Yeah,
that's how you're
just
normally
once.
supposed to do that. So
Just once.
I'm happy to make that change for you, Randy. It's not that big a deal.
That
Maybe-
made me happy.
Instead of changing going through the acronyms of all the document, just do like a appendix at the end, common acronyms that might be found.
Could do that too.
Like I said, when I wrote these, I didn't really write them
Sure,
with the general
sure.
public in mind. So,
Makes sense.
case management, again, how we handle cases within the police department, what the processes are for those. Just making sure that we handle them the right way so they don't slip through the cracks. That's the biggest thing. Questions on that one? Civil disturbances kind of speaks for itself. There's been quite a few civil disturbances here lately around the country. We just formed a team to kind of assist us with that. So this is a policy on their expectations and how they're supposed to handle those.
And then, Brian, I thought was interesting, and this one is on page 5, the things that we will not use.
Yeah.
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 Because seriously, when you look at the old footage, like from the 1950s and 60s, these are things, that you think of dogs and, hoses.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting to have that in the policy, that we will not use those,
Any other questions on that one? Code of ethics. This is something that we already do when we swear people in. So it's not a change there, it just spells it out as per accreditation. Questions on that? Collective bargaining, again, this policy just says that, if we have a collective bargaining unit, how we are expected to negotiate, how we handle grievances, management, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Questions? Jerry must not have any questions, he left. Criminal investigations, looks like there was a typo there on the number of pages, but this is basically an internal policy as well on how we handle investigations, how we are organized, that type of thing on our investigations. Practices, as you can see, this covers quite a few standards, so there's quite a bit of information on that in the accreditation. Questions on that? Hey, that's the last one for this go around.
Can I just ask, Brian, I'm curious about, for the criminal investigations policy, there's, at least part of it talks about custodial interrogations. So is this policy, you're saying you've adapted this, or you're basing this on materials you've obtained from the state or other resources? Where is that coming from? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about the science of custodial interrogations and best practices and so on. I'm just curious where that came from.
So this comes from other agencies that have been accredited, best practices that are throughout the state on criminal investigations, and how, it doesn't necessarily tell you how to do them, it just talks about the expectations while you're conducting investigations.
And who is the accrediting agency for?
Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group.
So basically made up of a board of
Yep,
chiefs,
they have their
something
own
like that.
It involves chiefs, retired chiefs, insurance company members, attorneys. I don't even know. The makeup is, I think that there's a WPPA representative as well from the police union, so it's quite a few different ones.
And they focus primarily on reviewing your policies and.
That's their entire focus. They are the governing body for every agency who wishes to become accredited. They, like I said, I'm a lead assessor for them, so they determine the training that's involved in that. They determine what policies are. They keep up to date with law changes and that type of thing and how those policies are affected. We also have another agency called WIPAC, Wisconsin Police Accreditation Coalition, which apparently they just voted me as the president, or going to, so I'm going to be heading that up. So looking forward to that, but that is basically an organization that helps agencies become accredited.
Thanks.
Yep.
Good, thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Any questions or comments about any policy or in general? So we have these 12 policies with a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chief.
And then I'll
Item
be,
E.
I'm sorry, until the board, there's 30 left, so I'm going to send out the next 10 tomorrow or Wednesday for March 4th, March 18th, and April 8th. So.
Okay. Okay, item E, Police Department reports. Item 1, the K-9 program. Any questions or comments here?
Similar to other reports here, I will happy to answer any questions that you guys have on our K-9 deployments.
Okay, we'll go to summary of major crimes.
Again, nothing to add that I haven't already talked about, so happy to answer any questions on that.
School resource program. And active investigations. Anything on those two? Okay,
Nothing?
doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
Item F, Police Department's annual award ceremony will occur on Monday, March 4th at 5 p.m. at the start of the village board meeting. So we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, no more cookies, we're gonna have cake, but we're gonna do it like we did last year, we'll have it in the back of the room there, so people can see and you guys can see as well, we're not facing the
Okay.
back.
Okay. So next is discussion possible action, possible contribution to Safe Communities of Madison. The background information, the village had provided a $1,000 donation each year from 2013 to 16. Recommended motion is to approve the village's contribution of $500 to Safe Communities of Madison.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
How does this benefit the village, Mike?
They do the med drop, for example. The representative was here 4 or 5 months ago at a board meeting, and I just forgot to put this on an agenda for a while. So I think. Oh, sorry, Brian.
Yeah, so they contribute, I mean, for us, I think they gave us, what'd I say, $1,600 or something like that back to help fund our med drop program. They're also going to be using our policy statewide as an example of how to use the med drop, so it's very nice of them. Yeah.
Why did the amount drop?
I just thought $1,000 seemed a lot, but if the board wants to make it 1,000, it's up to you. We've increased our contribution to the youth center, and so I try to juggle that money that we give out to organizations. But if you want to make it 1,000, I just put 500 on the agenda as a suggestion.
So right now it's at 500. Any discussion about that? Any further questions or comments? Okay, motion second to approve our contribution of $500 to Safe Communities of Madison. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item A is discussion of possible action, hiring Ruckert and Mielke to prepare a grant application for Rotary bike trail work. Recommend a motion to approve hiring Ruckert and Mielke for an amount not to exceed $5,000 to prepare grant applications for the Rotary bike trail repair work, funding from the 2019 borrowing, and we will provide an update on the bike trail repairs at the April 15th board meeting. So we need that motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so you can see we haven't been getting any more moisture, so that means the path is going to be all dried up here in a little bit. Actually, just the opposite. We continue to get more and more snow, more and more moisture, but, you know, I want to push ahead. We are pushing ahead, and we'll give an update on the Rotary Trail path. However, a lot of these grant programs are kind of starting to kick off here, and they'll be due in the next 2 months, and so we really want to get ahead of that a little bit. So if we can retain our engineers to be able to start preparing some of those applications, once we hear back from some of the landowners and everything, then we might be able to be prepared to submit for the grants.
So it's a competitive bid process, right?
For the grants?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, grants, some of them, it depends on how many applications they get. I have a feeling there'll be a much more competitive environment than there has been in the past.
So here's my concern. I'm concerned about spending $5,000 with no guarantee of return.
Correct. There's no guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a grant program, and I think, the programs, for one thing, my opinion with grant programs is you really look at it, you say, does this project really fit in the grant program's mission, if you will? If it does, I think you're a very good candidate for grant, receipt. But there's a couple things coming out. There's Dane County there's about $1 million set aside for flood, dealing with flooded paths and everything like that. We're not sure how much, they're still actually coming up with
Right. Well, I mean, there's really
formation of it.
two grants we're thinking of doing, which is the stewardship grant, which helped build the trail to begin with, and we're still trying to determine if this is what we're going to do is going to be eligible.
Correct.
It may come down that we're just going to submit the grant to the county. I emailed Sarah at the county when I heard, I think through Jerry, I heard this, that there was going to be money put aside, and I explained to her what we're going to be applying for. Of course, she can't guarantee it, but she said that our path would be an eligible submittal that they would look at.
Mm-hmm.
Again, nothing guaranteed.
So in the past, this isn't government, but in my nonprofit work, I've interfaced with graduate students at the university who love to take these kinds of projects on because they're directly applicable to what they're going to school for. They're going to become grant writers in the nonprofit world, or they're going to be going on to become municipal planners or something of that nature. And so they do that pro bono because it's part of their schoolwork. And I don't know that they would be eligible or that they would even be willing. But it's really hard for me to approve $5,000 of expenditure with no tangible return to the taxpayer. And so I'm just going to have to be a no. And that'll be my comments.
That's fine.
So, Jeff, they have some experience writing grants?
Yeah, most engineering firms have considerable grant experience, or people that are well qualified for this. And Griffith Milky's been very qualified in everything we've had them do for us.
Okay.
And there'll be some technical work that an engineering firm will have to provide as part of the grant submittal.
Correct.
And we can use that for other grant requests, right?
Correct. We've done that before. Yep.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to support this because, well, number one, if we don't start applying for grants, I know we get nothing. So I assume, I don't want to micromanage staff. I assume they've thoroughly analyze this and deem that our chances of getting awarded money are pretty good.
Right.
So, and number two, this will be a template for future grants going forward.
I'll tell you what, the stewardship grant, we've done this where and Jeff and I talked about this, if we are eligible to submit it, doesn't always mean you get it the first round, but then you don't get, you're on the list to hopefully get the money the following year. Or if they have extra money left over, sometimes you get that too. So. But again, it's not a sure thing.
So it's critical that Rachel's very nice to Joe Parisi on Wednesday.
I intend to be. I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the county has been real supportive of our trail.
Yeah.
And I know when Joe was here a few months ago, he said he would continue to do so.
Yep.
That does not guarantee a grant, but they are well aware of our situation. And as far as the property owner, there is minimal communication back and forth. There is some movement there. I don't know where it's going to end up as far as the options we propose, but it's not been a no yet. There's discussion going on, so we'll hope that they will work with us on all the options that were presented that Jeff developed. So yeah, I support this grant too. I know there's no guarantee you're going to get it. There's a guarantee you won't get anything if you don't apply for a grant.
Yeah, so what I was suggesting was that there's an in-between. There's an in-between not applying at all and spending $5,000 to have somebody apply for you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to explore that in-between.
Yeah, I understand that. In my perspective, we need to get this bike trail back in service, and I'm just more comfortable having somebody who's done these and is expert already do it, so we can have a better chance of getting it done. Not that they couldn't do a good job. You don't know. It's more of a crapshoot for me.
One thing along the lines of getting the bike trail back in service, because I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah.
We've got to get it back in service. The city of Madison kept Monona off their bike trail, Lake Monona, when it rose. And
We're looking at that.
Huh?
We're looking at that.
Yeah. So I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel in the short term. In the long term, I think we have to do something different with the bike path. You know, you can't just keep filling sandbags. But
Right.
in the short term, I think we can get that bike path open yet this spring if we just implement some engineering techniques that are already being used in the county.
Yeah, and we've had some discussion about that when we report April 15th on what all those are. So everybody here knows, because we have some work to do on that yet.
And
But
honestly-
everybody here knows, as will the public, on where we are on that trail.
I would rather spend $5,000 on that to get the trail open
Yeah.
than spend it on paying Rupert Milky to submit a grant on our behalf that might not get
Yeah.
get approved.
Yeah. I understand that. I just should do both.
Okay. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so we have the motion and second to approve hiring Rupert and Milky for an amount not to exceed $5,000 to prepare grant applications for the Rotary Bike Trail repair work. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries 6-1. Item I, discussion of possible action on the Janesville Park intersection services contract. Recommend a motion to award a contract to Town and Country Engineering, SRF Consulting Incorporated, for the engineering services associated with the Janesville Street and Park Street intersection project. Contract amount to be $61,200 per proposal dated February 6, 2019.
I'll move.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we've been bringing this, we were before you a while ago to be able to go out for these RFPs. We received, we sent it out to at least 5, well, actually 5, and then we also put it out on Facebook and our website. Received 4 from the firms you see down there on the memo. We did have quite a range in costs. It was a little concerning, and I did sit down and speak with Brian Berquist, who's with Town and Country. He was here. He had to go pick up some kids and stuff, so he had to, I guess he did not anticipate it running this far into the meeting for this, but I did sit down.
He does know that by 6:22 we're getting warmed up, right?
Right, exactly. So anyhow, I spoke with him about the task and about the scope. They are comfortable with that, and I look at all things. I evaluate proposals based off what's a QBS process. It's quality-based selection. So you're not focused on price, but you're focusing on the quality of the product and the quality of the firm you're hiring. All 4 firms, I believe, are well situated to do this work. If I didn't feel that Town and Country was qualified to do it, I would not be making this recommendation. So it's not strictly based on cost. But when it comes down to what is the village going to procure through this, I think all 4 firms are qualified for this. I did offer 2 adders that I thought Town and Country suggested that I thought were good. And one was to incorporate that County Highway MM at Wolf Street intersection into the traffic studies. I think that's good, and that probably will come up as a question during the DOT permitting as well. And then I thought Brian had an excellent point. When we redid the the Wolf Street intersection, he brought it to my attention that we carried the water main down to a certain point. This intersection would carry a water main back to a certain point. There was a small gap in there of maybe about 80 to 100 feet. That would be old pipe, and it just didn't make sense to do that. And so his suggestion was to include the design to have that extended water main replacement. So you see my recommendation there for a contract amount of $61,200, and if you would approve that, or if you would approve us to go forward with that, then we would get a contract from them and have that be brought back before you.
So I just have a quick question for my own clarification, because there's been points in time when we've talked about contractors, and I feel like what I've taken away from that is we have to take the lowest bid. And now what I'm hearing you say is that we don't have to take the lowest bid. So my question
Not on
is there
services that I understand.
is there liability involved to the village in not taking the lowest bid? Is there documentation that you have to provide to support your QBS approach?
It's been a few years since I looked into all that, because that used to be an argument we used to make. I mean, I think you have to have good reasoning for it, but Matt, do you know anything about the QBS selection process that would be?
No.
Okay, I mean,
Sorry.
I guess I would.
That's his
answer Matt
shortest
ever
answer
gave.
ever.
Yeah.
It's honest, right?
Yeah.
He wants to leave.
I think, well, I can tell you this, if I were trying to recommend you hire any of the other three firms over the lowest firm right now, I could definitely tell you that answer, but I have not done that research.
I'm all in favor of quality. I personally, I pay for quality. I don't pay the lowest contractor that's going to do the job. I pay the contractor that's going to balance quality and cost. So I 100% in favor of your approach, and I appreciate your approach. I was just a little bit confused by some of the messaging that I've gotten as I've sat here. And it's probably got to do with I don't know enough.
Well, there's always a difference between, right, Matt, professional services under state law and a building project. You go out to, it's an RFP for professional services. It's an actual bid document that you prepared for a project.
So the next phase of this project will be price sensitive in a way that this phase of the project is not.
Right, because you're bidding.
That'll be a construction project that will be bid competitively.
I understand.
And there we are required to go low bid, or lowest cost proposal, whatever, unless we
Prove that.
can prove that we can exclude
Right.
something like, if we've had, let's say, the lowest bid contractor is somebody we've had a lot of problems with, and we've kind of said, well, we'll never contract with them again, which normally they never rebid your projects anyways, but
And given the kind of projects that are coming up, I might take an opportunity to do some homework to determine whether there's anything we can do to, as I said earlier when we were talking about the library, to improve the position that we're in. For example, I know the statutes talk about pre-qualification of contractors. I've never done that, but it's something we could look into.
we always require pre-qualifications for contractors and everything, and we do that specifically for that reason, to be able to evaluate and just, I mean, we don't go through them with a fine-tooth comb all the time, but sometimes when you get something, you're like, I have never heard about this person. And you start looking at it, and, well, this is the first year they've ever done business. They have no bonding. There's a lot of things that you can start to look at and decide whether or not you would, that's where you kind of start opening yourself up for problems, I think. Or if you look at a contractor that they've done $50 million of work for the last 20 years and they've never defaulted on a project, everything like that, then you have a much better sense of security in what they can provide.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jerry?
Yes, Jeff, as part of the intersection evaluation study, would they be looking at a possibility of a roundabout there?
Correct. Yeah, actually, as part of this is the intersection analysis that'll be done, and that's something that, with any of this, they'll have to look at the warrant analysis. They'll look at traffic counts. They'll look at accident history, and then they're going to look at it from basically DOT will require them to look at three options: do nothing, just stop control like it is now, roundabout, or signal control. Now, my gut feeling feels that this will be well suited for a signal controlled intersection, but that will come out of the development of things. I think just with access and everything around that, I think a roundabout is going to be very difficult. It's also much more costly to construct.
I just wanted to make sure they're looking at that option.
They will be, oh yeah, yep. And we'll also be incorporating some public input with that, because we've received some comments from some people in the neighborhood. They would like an opportunity, and I don't blame them. They'll be able to talk about that. My other focus is pedestrian safety in this area, because we have kids coming across there to go to the daycare down the way. We have a new hotel that's there. We have new development that's occurring all through there, and then eventual development across 14. So we want to be able to maintain those pedestrian corridors through there.
Thank you, that was my question.
You
knew.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion second to award the contract to Town and Country Engineering, SRF Consulting Incorporated, for the engineering services associated with Janesville Street and Park Street intersection project. Contract amount to be $61,200 per proposal dated February 6, 2019. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item J, reminder, Saturday, March 2nd, affordable workforce housing tour from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. with the Oregon Housing Coalition. I think we all have the email from Candy to sign up and reserve a seat on the bus.
By the 27th, please.
Yeah, by February 27th,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
Okay, item K, discussion possible action, request by Netherwood Knoll Elementary Green and Healthy Committee to locate a storm drain mural in downtown area. Recommend motion is to approve that storm drain mural in downtown areas. Need a motion, please?
I thought you might be Teresa. I was weeding people out in the
I'll make the motion for discussion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I don't know what that is.
I'm sorry, had I known you were here for that, I would have moved you up.
No problem.
I'm sure it's been exciting.
You know, it's always good to get a glimpse. So my name is Teresa Nelson. I'm a parent of a fourth grader at Netherwood Knoll Elementary, and I learned about this opportunity to have a storm drain mural painted in our community. It's a program that is supported through a couple of different Dane County groups, and they provide all of the funding for it. It gives the students an opportunity to think about and learn about stormwater pollution and the fact that our storm drains connect to our waterways. And I think some of the storm drains in our downtown area would be a very good place to not only teach students about the fact that what you put down the storm drain impacts the aquatic resources, but also the community. And so this will give the fourth graders at Netherwood an opportunity to, again, learn about stormwater pollution. They take that home, talk to their parents about it. They go for a walk downtown. They see a storm drain mural that they had the opportunity to, some of them will get to paint it, and some of them will get to learn about it. And so what I need from the village is your approval to paint on the sidewalk. And the two locations that I think would be best, so they asked for two locations just in case one just doesn't seem appropriate. But my recommendation is the location up on the board on the intersection of Brook and Spring Streets. That storm drain is really right above the Oregon branch that's going underneath downtown. It's close to the school. It's in a heavily area with pedestrian traffic. The other option would be out front here in front of the Village Hall. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Are there questions?
So Teresa, you'll bring back the design. You probably have been thinking about it. Once you sort of get approved or get funding, you'll bring back the design to us?
So the process is, what we've selected is that the students get to brainstorm ideas, and those ideas go to artists with the Dane County Mural Artist Program, and they use those designs to come up with a final design. If you want a final approval, I'm sure we could bring that back. I know that they want to get this going pretty quickly so that it can get painted before the end of the school year. And if you look online, they have all of the designs that were done last year. There were 20 done around the county last year, and so it would be very similar. The messaging is keep it clean. This drains to, in our case, Badfish Creek.
What's the anticipated life of the mural?
I think they say 1 to 2 years.
Oh, okay.
I would hope that it would last a little bit longer, depending on what kind of traffic you have over it, but they do use special traffic paint for the murals.
It could be repainted, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a nice option to me.
How about tile mosaic?
I don't think we're going quite that far.
No.
So I think if it doesn't impede the progress of the doing it, I'd like to see it. I think that might be good for the board to see before it's painted.
Well, that gets it on TV another time, too.
Yeah.
Like,
All right.
So the paints that are used, are they toxic?
They're poisonous. They cause cancer in fish.
Yeah.
They have nicotine in them.
I would hope that they're not toxic.
They're lead
I cannot
paints.
say
Yeah.
for sure, but
Okay.
that's something that we could check on.
All right, thanks.
I don't think so.
Teresa, you need the application signed? Is that
Yep.
right? Okay.
So the application was actually, I submitted it, the due date was Friday. They said it was fine that I come get approval tonight, so, yeah, just a signature on the application that's already been, was in your packet.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Amanda?
No, go ahead, Jenna.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really like this idea, and can we do both? Is that a possibility?
It's possible to do more than one. They wanted to do 10 murals around the county this year, and I don't know exactly how many applications they got.
Sure.
But my suggestion might be putting them a little further apart, if we would do more than one. And we could do one next year, too.
True.
Amanda?
I also really love this idea, which fits in with Emily Anderson's award. That's why I kind of mentioned that here too. I like that you've thought out that the drains are right above where the creek runs underneath. That's fabulous. I mean, I'd support multiple ones if they wanted to, but if they just want one, I don't know. I don't have a real preference, I guess. I'm thinking about all the voters who come to Village Hall, so that is a lot of traffic. But if you're trying to get kids, probably more kids there. And
one of the things I noticed as I was coming into the Village Hall tonight is people are always parked in front of the Village Hall, and there would always be a car parked. So you wouldn't see it from the street necessarily.
good
You'd see it on
point.
the sidewalk in front of the Village Hall.
That-
This location, nobody would be parked in front of it.
oh, good point. I like this one better then.
Anything else, anyone? Okay, so we have the motion second to approve a request to locate a storm drain mural in downtown area. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And then the board does want to see it, design?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great to have kids involved. It's a great project,
Yeah,
I
thank
think.
you.
and,
Yeah, thank you very
we
much.
appreciate the work you've done.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to item 16, report of committees. Item A, Park Board meeting, February 6, 2019. Trustee Peterson, please.
Steve, just a second. Do you want that signed before you leave tonight?
Yeah.
You could sign one. You have a copy? Okay.
I got a copy. We can sign.
I'm just thinking to save time and, you
They've got it.
want Steve to sign it, or do you want me to sign it?
I'll sign it.
You gotta sign for Jeff Brown.
No, you go ahead. I don't want to get that confused.
Attach yourself to that name.
No. That would not be good.
Great, welcome, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
Okay.
Amanda.
Sorry, just gathering here. The first thing we discussed was the J.C. Park West facility final concept plan. Ross Rettler from Rettler Corporation was on the phone. It included a review of the rough estimated costs of $2,700,000 to $3,400,000. These costs do not include the concessions building, playground, and pickleball lighting, roughly $385,000, $50,200, and $135,000 respectively. Please note the costs for irrigation and ball field lighting have always been listed as alternatives on the previous estimates and thus have not been included in the above cost estimates either. The Park Board took input from local sports organizations on the final concept. And the recommendation to the Village Board, I moved, seconded by Knutson, to approve the J.C. Park West final concept plan, making the adjustments as discussed, which is having all 4 ball fields skinned, meaning no grass infields, that's dirt infield, and creating a full-size field on Field 1. That motion carried 4-0. And Mike, your note, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I got an email from Brian from the baseball organization, and I think, just maybe for the record, I thought maybe as part of the motion, we'd just make this very clear that Field 1, which is the large field, will have a pitching mound, and as you mentioned, the skinned dirt infield, and that Fields 2, 3, and 4 will also be skinned, but will not have a pitching mound. If I would ask for that to be in the motion, so that's really clear for the record, please.
Okay.
And for our benefit, can you tell us the difference between an elevated mound and a flat, no elevated mound?
There's no pitching mound.
Yeah, that was a bad question.
No,
Like,
it isn't.
why would one build a field with an elevated mound versus not?
And the skinned part, whatever that is.
I can tell you that at a certain age, they use elevated mounds.
Yep.
Just because that's what they're used to pitching on. It provides an advantage for the pitcher to be able to throw faster. So at a certain age, that's what they're required to use.
Okay.
I'm not sure what age it is. It might be 14, 15. I'm not sure, something like that. But if they're going to play on that field, it has to have an elevated mound.
And is there any concessions or any inclusions been made to benefit the softball group?
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I was going to answer your question. Actually, that They were nervous about supporting this until we actually went to the no elevated mounds and skin dirt field.
Got it.
Infill, sorry.
So they can play on 2, 3, and 4, and then baseball for older kids can play on 1, and for younger kids, they can play on 2, 3, and 4.
Right. Yep.
That's my understanding.
That's-
I was just asking Jeff, I don't understand why they, my personal opinion, why they didn't put a dirt or grass infield on the big one, because that's going to draw more people to
Yeah.
that, especially if they're not going to put softball on there.
You know what, it was shown that in the past, but they asked for that last week.
Yeah, that's interesting. No.
Now, again, I want to say something. This is very similar to the civic campus plan. This is concept. I mean, we're getting into the details about, dirt and elevated mounds. I mean, this could change, as we go through. They could change their minds. They could go back and change the diamonds. But I think for fundraising ability, we were doing it this way so that they can go back to their organizations and to say that the village listened to their.
Yeah, I can see the softball really loving this because they can play on 3
Yep.
of those fields
Yep.
now. So.
And I do think that that lighting should be included, first of all, because it's not inexpensive, and second of all, because I don't see these fields being used unless you've got lighting, especially in the late fall.
It's going to come down to money. I mean,
But to put all this money into these fields and not be able to use them,
Well, they're going to be putting in the provisions, the standards, the conduit and everything for the lighting. But if you look at, I think the cost of the lighting was 1.5 million or something like that.
It's expensive.
The feeling is the important thing is to get the fields in and then be able to come in later and everything's already ready to go. They just have to purchase the standards, put them up, and do the wiring.
Find a fundraiser.
Yeah, we're all working. Actually, we're having a meeting next Wednesday with the organizations, and the reason why I say this is concept is I don't want the organizations to think that as we get into the design work that if they feel they wanted to make a change that we can.
Yeah.
But this is what we're doing. But this is what we're asking the board to approve tonight, and then what Jeff and I will do, and Lisa we'll ask Rutler to rerun the cost estimates so that we have some good numbers. Because the last time we ran them, I think was almost maybe a half a year ago already. So.
Yeah.
So Steve, and Mike, since I'm helping fundraise for this, should I abstain?
What's your position in connection with the fundraising?
Chair of Oregon Community Resource Network.
And what is that a not-for-profit corporation? And you are an officer?
I'm the chair.
Yeah, so you should abstain.
Okay.
But he has no financial gain in it, so.
But the organization that he is an officer of apparently does have a financial interest in the project.
Well, we're helping to raise funds for the project.
So that it can be built.
Yeah, it's not funds for OCRN.
Not for
It's
us.
Okay, I'm glad you asked the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Let's
That's
good.
rethink this.
Well, is it
So
similar
this is just approving a concept plan for this.
Matt, is it similar to, can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
Is it similar to when we had those items with the church, and you asked Steve, Steve, are you an officer of the church? Is
Yeah,
that-
well, because that was taking action on something that had an impact on the church itself. So the approval of this concept plan doesn't have any impact on the organization at all.
On OCR, and we're here
Yeah.
to help.
Yeah. So I don't see, okay, you don't have a conflict on this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Want to be sure.
So we do need a second, Jeff.
Second.
Okay. Now we're leaving. Further questions or discussion on this? Anyone? Okay, so, let me just be sure I got the motion right. So the motion was about the skin diamonds, full-size field on field 1, and then adding the information that Mike brought forward. So any questions on any parts of that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, item 2, Amanda, please.
Yep. So this is a discussion and possible action regarding Oregon Soccer Association's request to locate a soccer field at Rustic Vineyard Park. The recommended motion, I moved, seconded by Korth, to approve locating a soccer field at Rustic Vineyard Park, conditioned upon the field is only to be used for practice. The practice times will be limited to hours after school until dusk, Monday through Friday. That motion carried 4-0. And village staff reminded the soccer association if they want to play games and not just practice on the field, they would have to come back to the park board for further discussion and approval. And they have a soccer field there that they've used previously for tournaments
Yeah,
and
Jeff's kinda
things.
showing it there.
Yeah, so, they mentioned that this practice field is smaller than a standard field. They're just using the area for practicing skills and things like that. There's no danger of balls going into the roads or bothering neighbors. It's not a game situation. So sometimes kids get dropped off, so traffic shouldn't be an issue. It's just practice. So, and there's plenty of other park space for neighbors who want to use that green space. They wouldn't take up all of it. It's just part of it. So.
Okay.
And those are all the things that have come up in the past. And so I'm glad that those were talked about, because the neighbors have been concerned about cars parking on the street, kids darting across the street, balls flying across the street, and their inability to walk their dogs in the park.
Don't they use this during tournaments?
They have for one tournament in the past. It's just their big
Fall Fury.
one, Fall Fury, yeah. And that was, they had to come and get special permission from the park board and then the village board to do it. They had special parking, signage, and things like that. It's like a one-shot deal. They wouldn't be using it every weekend for games or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's
I recall that because they come to us because they want parking regulations along there for the Fall Fury. So
Yeah, and they'll have to come back again if they want to use
Yeah.
it for Fall Fury again. I mean, that's very conditional, and this is just Monday through Friday practice after school for
Yeah.
part of the park. So we thought it was a good idea.
Okay, thank you. And we do need a second, yep,
Oh, I'll second that.
thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, so we have the motion and second to approve locating a soccer field at Rustic Vineyard Park, conditioned upon the field is only be used for practice, practice times limited to hours after school until dusk, and that plays out there. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
I have a quick question, and this maybe goes back to the planner that we're going to hire, and the way that we currently schedule fields. Will this now go into the rotation so that they have to schedule a field, or do they automatically get the field whenever they want it?
It's my understanding, because they made this special request, that they would get that portion of the park during these hours.
Through Deb at the school.
Through Deb, yeah. It is something that's reservable, but it's going to be sort of pre-reserved for them to be able to use it.
They were reserving a practice area at Hyde Meadows, which they prefer to be here. So they'll be doing that through the school.
She'll have to add it to the system.
I think she did.
Oh, and they did.
Sitting there, and she said make sure that.
Oh, okay.
They did talk about too, there aren't restroom facilities there except what softball puts out. They have a portable porta potty there, and they are working with the soccer club to either add another or whatever it takes to have something available for the kids there to use. So that's all taken care of too.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to item B, the Planning Commission meeting, February 7, 2019. Trustee Carpenter, please.
Sure, the first item is discussion of possible action regarding a conditional use permit application submitted on behalf of Recreational Concepts, Inc., applicant, the Kelland Family, LLC, the owner, to allow for temporary storage and operations for MP Next Level, a utility construction company on the property at 1075 Park Street. So this motion was approved unanimously by the by the Planning Commission. So I would make a motion that we approve the temporary use of 1075 Park Street for storage. This temporary storage is allowed for the current owner, Kelland Family LLC. It expires April 1st, 2019.
Second.
Any questions or discussion, comments? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 2, please.
Discussion of possible action regarding the Village of Oregon zoning ordinance amendments to 1, remove the conditional use requirement for group developments, and 2, to not distinguish between for-profit and not-for-profit status for various land uses. So I'd make a motion that we proceed with the Oregon zoning ordinance amendments to do both those things, and for various land uses as recommended by Village Attorney Matt Drigney and Village Planner Mike Slavny.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or discussion? Anyone? Anything? Nope. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 17, minutes not requiring action. The ones that people online can see are Oregon Area Fire EMS District from January 23rd, 2019, and Library Board meeting January 9, 2019. Item 18 is unfinished business. There's none before us. Item 19, new business. We have approval of pending new operator licenses, recommended approval by the police department. And those are at headquarters, Jalen E. Henn, at headquarters, Natasha M. Hedke, Aces Main Tap, Karen R. Williams. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Takes us to number 20, future agenda items listed. Item 21, the board may meet in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.851C, to consider performance evaluation data relating to village employees, and 19.851E, to discuss post office lease. The board will adjourn from closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
Pollak? Staton?
Yes.
Lish?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll go into closed session. As it said, we'll adjourn from closed session, and we'll stay right here. I'd also like to mention, Jeff was talking to Corey Horton, who was on the ballot in April.
Hey, Corey.
He's sitting up here. So welcome. You got your first taste of it.
That's good. I've been watching the meetings.
Yeah, I thought so.
They're better than mine.
You're still going to do it?
YouTube just
You've been
doesn't
watching the
do
meetings and you're still going to do this, huh?
Does he need to, well, I guess it should be official, right, before he could be.